For the first time in modern history, we're looking at the very real possibility of having a civil war simultaneously with World War III. Can you just imagine? But that's what it's really looking like, and I think in some ways it appears that Trump might be preparing for just that possibility. Everyone with a functional brain realizes everything is a mess right now. It's just gotten to the point where there's nothing that's really getting run well. There's no country that is in good total peace right now. The whole world is a mess. And we're going to dig into this because the possibilities are endless and there's a lot of evidence toward what I'm thinking here. Welcome back to another episode of What They Don't Say. And I've always promised I'll talk about what they don't say. This is stuff that never goes through the media. You don't see a lot of it even in social media because most of that relates to what is in the daily media. So let's just unpack this a little bit and take a look. I'm your host, Fred Lynn, and here we go. We're going to say it because they don't. We've never seen this kind of turmoil in the lifetime of any living person right now. Yeah, we had a lot of riots and stuff back in the 60s, and we had the Rodney King trouble, the George Floyd stuff, and that got out of hand more for the moment, but it wasn't as widespread. Those were isolated instances to certain cities. There was some national uproar over it, but we haven't had the sporadic violence and trouble around the country like we've got now, as has been highlighted by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The problem is, a lot of people think this is all American politics. Americans tend to do that because, being the greatest country in the world, we've always kind of focused on what's going on here because we lead the world. However, there's been so many power shifts and things have changed an awful lot over the decades. And right now, what we've got, the problems that we're having are the same problems they're having in Australia and all over Europe. Ireland, the UK, Germany, France, even into Greece. They're all having the same problems and the same people are all behind it. They just had riots for a couple of days in Paris. Things got burned. They had 80,000 police that had to respond to this. Antifa was behind it. And guess who was working with Antifa? It was the labor unions and the teachers unions. It's exactly the same thing that's going on here. Not only that, over there the riot organizers dressed with the bright green fluorescent vests like they wear in construction zones. That's the riot organizers. The same thing that happens over here. It is no coincidence that we're seeing the same things happen here that happen in Europe because it's the same people who are behind it. And you can include Australia with that. But we've got a lot of turmoil. It's all coming from the left. In America, they're using the Democrat Party. Overseas, they're using whatever party they've got available to them over there. In every corner of this struggle, the left has taken over a national party somewhere. And they're operating within the core of it. And all of them are using the teachers. All of them are using the labor unions. And that is the one common denominator among all of them. The teachers' unions are firmly entrenched with the globalist powers that are seeking to overthrow Western civilization. They want to replace Western civilization in our capitalist, democratic, free republic society. And yes, we do have democracy in the U.S. That is why you vote. Our nation, our government is not a democracy. It's a constitutional representative republic. But that is based on democracy. It is based on people voting for their representatives. So don't let that cloud you up. However, all of that is rejected by the people who want to take over the world. We got people that want to establish caliphates. They're one angle of it. We've got Putin wanting to restore the Soviet Union. We've got China with their eye on expansion. They've pulled off the greatest global expansion program in the history of the world with their One Belt, One Road initiative. They've got their tentacles now into Europe, all over Africa and the important mining regions. So we're looking at the possibility that we could actually go into World War III, and if we do, there's going to be upheaval in our streets because that's what these people are hoping for. We're already seeing it. We've got areas of our country that have already been taken over by people who are aligned with foreign enemies. Look at Dearborn, Michigan, for instance. Look at Minneapolis, the trouble they're having with the Somalis. Those are Muslim Somalis. These people do not come here to assimilate and become Americans. They come here to conquer. That's what they do. They don't know any different. That's what they've been raised to do. That's what they've been doing since about, 700? That started back in the 7th and 8th centuries. In the year 700, this was going on, and they haven't changed. They still believe that same way. They still teach that to their children, and they are here. And they are firmly embedded within our society, and they have claimed sections of real estate, territories, pieces of our cities and states, and they want us changed. They want us to become a Muslim nation. At the same time, we've got our American left. Now, they're not after a Muslim nation. However, it's one of those cases where they banded together because they figure we're the enemy, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, they banded together. The left is working with these forces. They're all coalescing against us. And we know it. And thank God a lot of young Americans realize it too. But over there in England, Ireland, they're having an awful lot of trouble with the same kind of immigrants. The immigrants that come in just to milk the system and change it. They're establishing their own culture. They're reestablishing their own societies within the Western societies that let them in. The problem with the West is it was so prosperous and so peaceful for so long, people got lax. I mean, that just happens every time a nation is successful. But we all became the ripe prize to be plucked. And all these countries are coming in to pluck it. Globally, we've got the problem with China and Russia. Both of them have their eyes on expanding their territory. But look at the wars that we've been involved in. Right now, we have President Trump is starting to send National Guard into some of our cities. We've all seen that. He's threatening to do more. Is there more to this? Are these just times for the National Guard forces and the officers that run it all, the entire military machine? Is this just an opportunity for them to start getting some experience on how to deploy to cities? Are they preparing for what they perceive may be coming as a greater conflict in our streets? You got to remember, part of the duty of military is to stay prepared. Why do you think we get involved with all these foreign wars? It's like the Afghanistan thing. We're helping and we're supplying all these military supplies and weaponry in Ukraine. We're doing it over in the Middle East. That isn't just because we've got political interest there. It's because we have to keep our army sharp. We have to test our weapons against the enemy weapons. I remember when I was a kid, there was turmoil overseas, and this is when Libya was acting up and all that trouble was going on. Russia had their MiG jets flying around over there, and there's a lot of stuff in the news about our F-16s out there chasing down these MiG jets and picking them out of the sky. And it's like, well, that's not our war. Why are we doing that? And as I grew older, I realized when we keep modernizing weapons, there is no way to just test these weapons. You can't just fly around over the ocean shooting floating targets or, dummy ships and consider that a test. You've got to test all this stuff in actual combat. And unfortunately, that's what we do. Have you noticed when there's a big war like in Africa, they will have millions of people slaughtering each other with machetes. We never go in and help, right? We stay out of those. Everyone says it's because they don't care. We aren't doing these wars because we care. We're doing it because we want to test our weapons against enemy weapons. When we get involved in these foreign conflicts, it's because the people on the other side, in a lot of ways, it's almost a proxy war. The people on the other side are using weapons, the latest, greatest from China. They're using the latest, greatest from Russia. We want to test our latest and greatest against them without having to actually confront them in a war. It's the only way we know where we stand against the enemy's potential. That is why we get involved in these things. Trial by fire. Unfortunately, there is no other way to give the ultimate test of military equipment and the tactics that are involved with military equipment. It's not enough to just make a new piece of equipment. They've got this military stuff layered so many ways now where all of this equipment works together electronically. This one gives a signal to that one, they pass it on to this one. It's a whole network. You don't dial that in without being engaged in a war somewhere. So unfortunately, that's one of the reasons we have to be engaged. But if we do get in a situation where we're actually at war with Russia or China, we're not going to be at war with just one of them. Immediately, no matter what pops up, everybody's going to be involved. The world is a powder keg right now. Everybody can feel it. You can feel the tension in the air, and it is everywhere. So it's going to be all or none. Right now, we call it none. It's the minor conflicts where we're testing our weapons against each other. But when this erupts, and it will, because the one thing mankind has always done is go to war. We've always done that. There have been brief periods of peace, like we've had relative peace since World War II. You know, the people who died in Korea and got maimed and killed in Vietnam, Afghanistan, of course it's not relative peace for them. But on a national scale, it's relative peace. Since World War II, we haven't had the kind of conflict that involves all of society giving their best at once. We're going to get into that again because mankind has always done this. But if it erupts now, the bad actors that we have within our country are going to seize the moment and they're going to rise up. And the problem is, they will do it like the IRA terrorists of Northern Ireland. They're not going to just take to the streets. A civil war won't be like it was before, where you've actually got army forces and rangers and raiders and all that. No, what you will have will be sneak attacks. All these little sleeper cells and stuff that they've got now, they will attack our power supply. They will attack water supplies. They will blow up bridges. They'll just run out and do that. You'll hear something happened in Dayton, Ohio. Something happened in Omaha, Nebraska. That's what you will hear about. It will be sporadic. It's like a popcorn thunderstorm. When they tell you got popcorn thunderstorms coming, it's because they know the storms are coming somewhere. They don't know where they're going to blow up. They blow up quick, brief. They can do a lot of damage in a little area, and then they're just gone. That's what this would be. That's what we're looking at. The very real possibility of having civil war simultaneously with World War III. Now, right now, Putin and Kim and Xi just met together. They've been having war games. Putin and Xi have been having war games together for a very long time. China and Russia have been conducting war games together in a partnership for around 25 years now. They are allied. Right now, Putin is telling Trump to stuff it. He'll talk nice to him, but he goes right back into attacking Ukraine. They have been sending drones into Poland. Now they're flying over Estonia and have to be chased out by NATO planes. Matt Whitaker was placed in charge of NATO, and at the time I thought that he should have been our AG. I was a little upset about that, but Matt Whitaker is a very intelligent and capable man, and he is a pit bull. And I think Trump put him in there for a reason, and that reason is we need the strongest possible soul over there riding herd on NATO, and Matt Whitaker is the guy to do it. And the only reason Trump would do that is because he thinks that it's going to be very necessary to have an extremely tough man running NATO for the U.S. That tells you something else about what Trump sees looming on the horizon. And it really looks like the potential is there for a major conflict. We can talk a little bit more later about what kind of conflict World War III would actually be today, but we've got to realize right now the point of this is if we have World War III, we are also going to have conflict in our streets with all the bad actors that are already here. Yes, we're armed, but you can't just run out shooting people because you don't know who they are. They look like everybody else. That's the problem they had in Northern Ireland. It could be the people you're working with. You don't know. But at night, they might dress up in their masks. They might be meeting with people, building bombs. You don't know that. All of a sudden, you just hear a restaurant blew up. They had restaurants over there blow up where they had like 130 people injured because people want to go out and live their daily lives. Imagine if that starts happening in grocery stores here. That's what we're looking at. And I think one of the reasons that Trump is using the Guard to go in and fight crime in these cities is because our Guard military system, administrators, the people who control the logistics, the National Guard operations, they need some experience with deployment. They need to learn how it works when you're actually on the ground in an American city in a possibly hostile environment. The only way you get that training is to actually do it. What does Trump have them doing it right now? They're actually doing it. We've seen the uptick in violence against these ICE guys. The left is doing the same thing. The left recognizes the potential for strengthening federal power against terrorists on the street, although they don't consider themselves terrorists. That's exactly what they are. For God's sake, they shot Charlie Kirk, okay? Tell me that's not a terrorist. He is united. He's not just a guy that got mad like the Unabomber was. This guy is united with a lot of groups that are active politically. And they're conducting a lot of violence sporadically throughout the country. This is not a one-off. This guy, we don't know how many people he was actually working with. We don't know if we're ever going to know. But he is part of something. He's not just a lone wolf with his own crazy mixed up thoughts. He was part of a team. Right now, Trump is making sure that our National Guard gets trained so that when the time comes and they have to be called on to go in and act within these communities, to put down these people, they are not going to let Trump complete a 4-year term because he's reversing too much of what they've worked for. They've worked for decades to get us in the mess we're in. They're trying to destroy Western civilization. They're trying to do it here in Europe and Australia. That's all of Western civilization. These bad forces are at work. They're doing the same things in all these places, and it's getting very dangerous in all these places, all at the same time. While the biggest enemies like Putin and Russia, who have a lot of links, don't forget the BRICS countries like down here in Brazil, they're one of them. The global sides are being arranged. They're being defined. Hey, I'd like to remind you right now, I don't know if you're familiar with us, if you're new to us, but I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe. We're a new channel. Moved everything over here from our old formats. This is just what we're focusing on because this is a lot of work. It really is. Anyway, appreciate you being here. If you want to help us grow, please hit like, subscribe, and most of all, the comments are really important too. Give us your feedback. Thanks. The conflict is already here. It will escalate. That's just what humans do. It's going to escalate. Trump is preparing for it. Know it for what it is. It's not just about putting down crime in these cities. It's the practice runs that our military needs. It's a practice runs to gear the minds of people in the National Guard to the fact that they could be deployed and that there may be violence and they may be called on to quell it. This is not going to end well. There's no good way back from the mess that we've gotten ourselves into. It's just not going to happen. There's no good way back. Unfortunately, all societies that are successful wind up in the same mess. Now we got to get ourselves out of it. Thank God it's President Trump who's in charge right now, but they want to make America ungovernable. It has to be ungovernable under Trump because first and foremost, he is reversing a lot of what they see as their accomplishments. It has to become ungovernable. That's why Newsom is kicking back at him so hard. He wants it ungovernable. The mayor over there in Illinois, the idiot, Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, the governor of Illinois, Pritzker, these people are making war talk. They aren't just talking about political resistance. They're talking about fight back. We're being invaded. We have to fight ICE. This is war talk. Yes, there is potential. For the first time, we've got real potential for civil war. People were talking about it during Obama. I kept telling them, nope, not going to happen, not going to happen. Because that would have required the conservatives to start it. Good people don't start wars, they finish them. This one is being started on us because they're going for the kill. Trump is reversing too much of their work. They're not going to stand for it. They've got more protests. Even as Charlie Kirk was being laid to rest, the Democrats were planning their next series of protests here in America. This is the anti-Charlie Kirk crowd because September 18th, just a few days after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, they had their first virtual meeting nationwide run by Randy Weingarten from the National Education Association. They're organizing another No Kings protest for October 18th. This is where they recruit. They work those crowds. They find the radicals, the fanatics. They recruit them. They feed information into their heads. I'd like to know these trans Tifa guys that we've had that have already been doing these shootings. The nutcase up there in Minnesota, the one with the crazy mother that made him trans. Now this one out there that killed Charlie Kirk. I'd like to know how many of these meetings and rallies they went to. The No Kings protests. That's what they are. They're recruitment rallies. But they started planning that right after Charlie Kirk was killed. It's going to be on October 18th. They want to have 2,000 of them nationwide. They are assembling their army. They've got crazy activists. They want them gelled. They're putting their units together just the same as we are, just the same as Trump is. That's why Trump has Matt Whitaker over there watching NATO. That's why we're starting to interact with them. We're starting to threaten Putin. Putin is laughing at us and attacking where he shouldn't even be thinking about going. There's no reason for him to challenge Poland and Estonia, except for the fact that he wants to rebuild the Soviet Union. China, that's a whole other story, but they're getting violent over there. They're ramming ships from the Philippines, and we have mutual defense contract agreement with the Philippines. If China starts firing on them, we're involved. It's not going to take much. It's only going to take one spark because we are a powder keg, and it's only going to take one spark to blow this powder keg. Just be ready for it. Don't be surprised. Don't be scared because it just happens. It's like my grandmother told me after she'd survived 2 world wars. We were talking about it and how terrible. And it's like, man, I'm surprised there's anybody left. But she said, there's an awful lot of people that die in world wars. She said, but the truth is, most people don't. Most people just stay alive and suffer from it. She said, some people are hardly affected. It depends upon where you are in the world at the time. Well, if you're in the Western world, you're going to be affected by this next one. But she was right. Most people do survive the world wars. But this is going to, most, what's that? That's 51%, okay? That's most. It can be catastrophic. It can be very catastrophic. But just be ready for it. Have your mind right with God. Be right with your family. Just be prepared. I hope that cooler heads will prevail and avoid it. But when you watch the news, when you see what's building, you know what's coming. Like I said, it's the only thing mankind's ever been reliable about is they start wars. This one is going to be here. It's going to be neighborhoods and nations simultaneously. Europe is going to be busy. They got so many Islamic sleeper cells scattered throughout Europe right now that half of their army is going to be busy just quelling what's going on in the neighborhoods, in the streets. That's the same thing here in America, but to a lesser degree. Europe is going to be in major turmoil over it, and it can explode overnight over there. Like it just did in Paris with the big protest. That just came up out of nowhere. Just talking about some budget cuts. The world is a powder keg. But think this over, my friends. This is enough for now. But it looks to me like there is more to this deployment of the National Guard than just fighting a little crime. It's training runs for the National Guard and the system it takes to deploy them. Just like we test our weapons against the enemies in the fields and other people's wars. You've always got to test your military or you don't keep it sharp. Keep it in mind. Keep your eye on the news. Go about your daily business. Pray that we get it right. And if we do, then maybe God will continue to bless this great country of ours. Thanks for listening.